So this week, we're going to just do a simple website. First, we're going to do our hello world using Django, and then with that structure built, we're going to follow it up by actually getting some database information up onto the web page. So this is essentially the demo in Blackboard. I'm going to step through it so you can see it, and then you're essentially going to be doing the same thing again. I'm trying to keep this simple because this is quite a bit different than what we've done up to this point, and it is just a lot of stuff going on. So just trying to get the simple structure working, I think, is a win. Next week we'll be building on this a little bit to do a few other things, and then just to give you a preview, after next week we'll do web Django one more time, and then after that we have 2 weeks of new lessons left. There is going to be a week on at-scale development tools, and then there's going to be a week of essentially an end-to-end data pipeline, fairly simple end-to-end data pipeline. So that's all we'll have left, and then we'll have a couple of wrap-up topics the following week, and then we'll be going into final projects after that. This week, we are just going to get a simple website set up using Django and Python. So let me get my screen shared. Okay, so this week, most of the stuff I'm going to do is either going to be in command prompt or in this tool called Notepad++. Now, Notepad++, you don't have to use this. There's nothing special about this tool as far as coding is concerned. It is just a nice tool for editing files. And I really like it because I can edit multiple files at once, because it'll tab them across the top. And also it will, recognize that I'm reusing function names and things like that and try to autocomplete them for me. It's a good tool. It's free. It's open source. I do put a warning in Blackboard because when you go to the download page, the guy's trying to make money off of a free product, so he's got advertising in there, and some of the advertising is a little misleading. So make sure you're getting the actual installation file and not actually accidentally clicking through on a stupid ad. It's made to look like an installation. I think we've all been living in the online world enough to avoid those things, but I just wanted to give you that warning. So you got to scroll down a bit, get to the right one, and install it. Again, it is not the only program to use for this. There are other ones that are really good. I think there's one called Sublime Text that some people like. You can just straight up work in a notepad file if you want. Just whatever you need to do to edit the files. I just find that this tool works well, so this is the one I'll be utilizing. So what we're going to do is we are going to first set up a virtual environment. After installing virtual environment in case it isn't already there. The advantage of working with virtual environment, especially when you're doing things like setting up pages or complex projects in general, is that it creates kind of a bubble around our project. And then we can install all of our dependencies or our packages into that project. And then within that virtual environment, we have control over the versioning of those dependencies. And the reason that's important is because if you build something and you get it all working, then you go to build another project and you install a different version of, let's say, Django in this case. Well, if you're not within a virtual environment, you may break your original project because you're using a different version of your dependency. So by putting that wrapper around it, kind of protecting our project from changes that might happen in our larger Python environment or our larger installation environment. So it's pretty important, especially if you've got multiple projects that you're going to be working on. So that's the first thing we're going to do here. So again, we'll be doing quite a bit in command prompt. As I warned last week, this is a Windows thing. If you're working on a Mac, you're going to have to try to translate, doing similar stuff with terminal instead of command prompt. I apologize, I just don't have a Mac here to kind of do both ways. It's just going to be Windows. So first thing I'm going to do is I am going to install virtual environment. So mine's already installed, but I'll just put it in here again just so you can see it. I'm just at my system32 prompt, and I'm just going to type pip install virtual env. If you recall, pip is what we use to pull down packages for Python. Okay, so mine does it really quick because I already have this installed. So you can see it says requirement already satisfied. If you didn't already have it installed, it will go through the process of installing it for you. So that's the first thing. Once we've done that, now we want to launch our virtual environment, but we want to put it within wherever we're going to create our project. So I'm going to move to the directory where I want to create my project. With System32 is not a good place to create a project. Something that if you're not comfortable or haven't been doing command prompt in a long time, a lot of this stuff can be tab completed, especially with directory names. So you can see CD means essentially go to this directory. So I'm saying from my current directory, open the users directory. I don't have to just do it one directory at a time. I can just backslash, and then I know my username or my profile in this case is MA Gilbertson. So I start typing MA and then I hit tab and then it auto completes it for me. And then I want to go to documents. I have to keep myself organized, otherwise it gets just completely out of hand. So I've got a lot of directories. So let's see, I want module 10. Okay, so I'm in the module 10 directory, and I'm going to create my project inside of a directory inside of this directory, which doesn't exist yet. So in command prompt again, I can just type in mkdir, which just stands for make directory. I'm going to call it demo project 2, which is very similar to what's already in Blackboard because I did demo project 1 when I was taking my screenshots, but I'm going to make one called 2. You could also do this step just by going into your file explorer on your computer and just creating a folder. It's the same thing. But once I've done that, I just hit enter, and then I hit dir. There's a lot of stuff in this folder, but if I scroll here, you can see I now have a directory called demo project 2. So I've created my folder that I want to use. Now I'm going to go into that folder, again, by doing cd space demo project 2. I hit enter. Now I'm in the folder where I want to create my project, and this is where I need to launch my virtual environment. So I'm going to type in venv slash, sorry, I sometimes get my syntax wrong. So I need to do virtual and venv. Virtual env is what uses the installation. Venv is what I'm calling my doesn't have to be venv. That's commonly what it's called. So it's setting up my virtual environment for me right now. It's essentially pulling a copy of my Python environment into my virtual environment so I can utilize it. Don't remember how long this takes, but I don't recall it taking very long. I guess it's good for you to see it in real time. Don't watch you're doing it. It takes a moment. Almost there, I'm hoping. There we go. Done. That's always a good sign. So once I've got that virtual environment created, if I actually do a dir, which just shows you what's in the directory, you can see it's got a folder here called venv, which is where it's pulled down a clean copy of Python for me. And that's where I can utilize it within my project. However, I need to launch my virtual environment to actually start working within it. So in that same directory, I'm going to type in venv scripts activate. There's a file in that directory that activates your virtual environment. And when I hit enter, you can see now it comes right back to my command prompt, but I've got venv in parentheses at the beginning. That tells me that I'm working within my virtual environment on my clean Python install for my project, which is exactly where I wanted it to be. And now that I'm in that, now I'm going to install the show. So when you're working this way, every time you create a new project, you'll just want to install Django again. You'll have to, because it won't work. Even if you had it installed outside of your virtual environment, it wouldn't be available within your virtual environment. So I need to do the install for it. So I'm going to do pip install Django. And this one will also take a moment. So it's going out and pulling it down from wherever this resource is coming from. So you can't do this unless you're connected to the web. Too late. Okay, so it's installed. All right, so now we have our Django package available in our virtual environment for our project. So if I do a directory again, or dir on this folder, I'm not going to get anything yet. I'm not sure why I wanted to do that. But now that I have it installed, I can set up my Django project, because the file area, by typing in Django admin, Django-admin, start project, project 2, because that's what I'm calling my project. Completed. Now if I do a directory, I have a new directory in here called Django project 2. So this is essentially, or this is exactly what you get when you create an empty Django project. So if I open this folder, inside of there is another demo project 2 file, or directory. CD before I do that. And inside that, the third one. That's not doing what I wanted it to. I think I did that on the wrong directory, so that's going to be challenging. There we go. So inside of there, I get these generic files. Each one of these files has a function, and I'll be editing some of these, but, and I can explain this in Blackboard. But in here, the ASGI and the WSGI, those are for server deployment. We won't be getting into server deployment for this. We're just going to be doing everything on localhost, so we don't need to do anything with those. Settings.py is the overall project settings file. You don't really need, or we will be editing that one as we go. URLs is helps it route you to the right pages depending on what the person types into the browser. So we'll be editing that one as well. We don't have to do anything with init.py. If you recall from CIS289, init is something that comes along with the package, and anything that's in init, it's run automatically when the package is accessed. But we don't have to do anything with it. It just comes along with it right now, so it's empty. If I go on, I should have, and managed.py is an overall project settings type file, so we'll be editing that as well. So those are the things that come along with it. So my next step, now that I have that, is I'm just going to go ahead and run my server. So I've created an empty project, and it lets me at least do something to see that everything in the installation went well. So I'm in the right directory, because I can see I've got my manage.py, and I just Python manage.py start, or I'm sorry, run server. And once I do this, it's not going to come back to my command prompt, because my command window is running my server for me right now. So you can see starting development server at 127.0.0.1, 8000. And then if I want to quit, I can either hit Control Break, or if you don't have Control Break on your keyboard like I don't, you can hit Control C a couple of times and break that way as well. But I can now go into my browser and go to 127.0.0.1:8000, which is 127.0.0.1 is local server, 8000 is the port. These things can be adjusted. This is the default. And when I run that, it just essentially shows me the Django view and that it installed correctly. So the good thing here is that I know I've got a good working environment for my project create, and it's a cool rocket. I haven't done anything for myself yet, but I need the installation correct. So that's always a good place to start. So with that done, now we want to make something of our own. And of course, when we start something new, we always want to do hello world. I'm going to first stop my server from running. So if I hit Control C, you can see it takes me out of it and back to my Ven prompt. So here is where one of the things that's really about Django. So we've created a Django project, and the way Django is structured is you have a project, and then within that project you have one or more apps. And each app can kind of stand alone, but also live within the project. It's kind of nice to be able to break down maybe a complex setup into smaller apps that are easier to work with. And we'll be creating a couple of them here. The first app I want to create is Hello World app. And just to do that, I'm going to go back to my command prompt, which I'm already there, and I'm going to type in Django-admin start app Hello World, because that's what I want the app to be called. Let's see. So now I go into my directory. I have a new folder called Hello World that wasn't there before. So you see here, I've got this directory didn't exist before. And if I open up that directory, look there, I've got some files that go along with that app. So you want to be careful as you go through these things, because as you make multiple apps, you will get multiple files with the same name, those directories. So as you're editing things with your project apps, you need to make sure you're editing the correct one, because otherwise things get messed up really fast. So in here, I've got admin.py, which is a configuration file for admin. Django admin. We'll be looking at a little bit next week. Apps.py is configuration for the app. We'll be updating that a little bit. Models.py, this is we'll be doing this on the second part. Database integration. Tests, we actually get to unit tests. Unfortunately, you can set up unit tests for your application this way. And then views helps when there's a request. It tells it what needs to be returned from the request. So we'll be editing that one as well. So we've got our empty project, or we've got our project set up with our empty app now. Now we need to set up our app to actually do something. So I'm going to move from command prompt over to my Notepad++ window. And I'm going to make some changes. So I'm first going to open up my views.py. I got to back up here. No. So you get a little bit of stuff already in here when you set this project or this app up. But I need to add in just a little bit here. So I'm adding in the another import for bringing in HTTP response, and then just a full simple function that is called home, that when it receives a request, it just returns a response, hello world. So that's what we want to actually get rendered on our web page. That's all I need to do in that one. We need to remember to save these things as we go, because otherwise it'll seem like it did when all it is that I haven't saved my project or my file. So now I've saved it, and then I'm going to move on to the next one. So that's all I have to do with that one for now. Now I'm going to launch urls.py, which URLs is at the project level. So it's right here. And again, it comes with a bunch of pre-built stuff. And I'm going to put in 2 more imports. The first one here is just going to allow me to set up a URL instead of a path. And the second one is so that it can find my hello world view. And then down in the URL, or I'm sorry, down in the URL patterns, I'm going to add in this. This is doing, it has a very simple res at the beginning that is going to basically give this response back no matter what URL they put in. It's just basically any path will give this result. It's very loose regex. And then I'm telling it grab my views for hello world, and then I'm just calling it home. So it gives a page a name on the tab. All I have to do to URLs py, so I'm going to save that. And I think I might be ready to launch this thing now. So let's see if I've forgotten to add to my notes here or if it's actually going to work. So I've made those 2 edits. I'm going to another thing with command prompt, if you don't already know it, is you can hit the up arrow and bring back commands that you've already typed in. So it's convenient when I want to run my server, just hit the up arrow a few times and you can pull back my python manage.py run server. And my server is now running. And I go back over to my browser, refresh, and now instead of having a generic rocket launching, you can see it says hello world, which means that I was able to create some very simple code, and then when somebody comes to my site, bring that code up onto the page, or that text up onto the page. If I'm not mistaken, it doesn't matter what I put in here, I'm going to get hello world. Oh, just kidding. So that regex only works when you're on the page. I apologize. I thought it was good. It was a catch-all. So when somebody comes here, they can see hello world. Any questions on all that? Okay, so that's that. That's what I wanted to show you there. Now I want to do something a little more useful. So it's kind of a jump in difficulty, because going from just putting text on the screen to integrating with a database and then bringing that data, there's quite a bit more we have here. So I'm going to step through that for us next, which is the last topic this week. Is we're going to create a database table using Django, and then we're going to access that table. We're going to update that table to the command prompt, and then we're going to access that table to bring the data to the browser. So we're going to call it to-do app, and I'm first going to create a new app. So you've already seen that. I'm going to create another new app. I'll kill my server here with Control-C, back to editing it. And I'm going to cheat again and just hit up until I get to my make directory. I'm sorry, start app. Instead of calling it hello world, I'm going to call it to do. Now if I bring up my directory, I think I may have put that in the wrong directory. Shoot. But we're going to end up with, you're going to have to keep an eye on me here, because I'm going to mess this up if I'm not careful. Try again. I'm going to end up with two to-dos. So now I have a to-do in the correct directory. You can see I've got hello world is here and to-do is here. They're both in the same directory. So I've done that, and then I'm going to have to add that app to settings.py again, just like I did, or actually I didn't do with hello world. I apologize. I should have done that. I'm surprised it worked. Actually. I'm going to open settings.py. I have that right in Blackboard, so if you step through it that way, you're okay. But I'm going to bring up settings.py. And I should have had it here in my installed apps, and I didn't. So I'm going to do that now for both of them. You normally have to do this. I'm actually quite surprised it worked at all, but I'm going to do it for this one and this one. It shouldn't be looking for these apps to exist unless they are in this file. That's the only thing for this demonstration that we have to edit in the settings.py is just getting those installed apps in there. There's a bunch in here that can be edited, but we don't really get into this stuff. So I've added those 2 apps, the installed apps. And now I'm going to edit models.py, which we haven't used at this point because we haven't had to. And I need to make sure I go into the models.py under my to-do app. So I'm in my to-do app, this one called models.py. And what models.py does is it allows us to create models. And it'll probably look familiar if you recall our object-oriented stuff. So we are creating a class. I'm going to call to-do item, and I'm going to have different attributes of that class. So there's who added, who assigned, add date, to-do name, due date, and completed. So what I'm doing with this to-do, these are different attributes of my to-do list. So I've got whoever added it, basically who's creating the list, or the to-do item, who it's being assigned to, what date they added it, and then to-do name. This is probably not the best nomenclature here. It's essentially the details of the to-do item, when it's supposed to be completed, and then this is just completed 0, 1. So if to-do completed, it gets a 1, otherwise it gets a 0. Now I can assign data types to these. It's a little bit different than what we normally see in Python. A char field or char field is just essentially a string, and then I can assign a length to it if I want to. This it defaults to a length if you don't assign it. Same thing here. This is also a char field. Date time field looks like this. By default, date time field goes 4 position year, 2 position month, 2 position day. And I've got 2 of those, what date it was at. And then what date it was due, or also a char field. And then I use an integer field. There isn't a Boolean field here as far as I can figure out. So I've just been using an integer 0 or 1. So this is my model. This is what I want to be able to store in my database and then bring to the web. Okay. Now once I've got that done and saved, I can go back over to my command prompt, tell Django to set it up, because I've got the model created. Now I want that model to get migrated in database. So I'm going to type in Python, as long as I'm in the right directory, image.py, make migrations to do. Oh, I made an error there. It even told me I made the typo. Make migrations. So once I've done that, it's created what it's calling 0001 underscore initial.py, which is a file. I can show you that. And then it created a model for to-do item. And then if I do on manage.py migrate, we'll take that information that it just put into that file to set up the table. Okay, so that's completed. So I'm going to show you quick 0001 initial.py, which wasn't there before. So you see this folder called migrations here, and this file now exists called 001, and it helps create the process that will be used to assign the database information. So that's all set up for me. Kind of makes it a little bit easier for me. And then if I run my DB browser, I'm going to start getting concerned because I'm not seeing my database. Oh, I was just in the wrong directory. So I've now got a database associated with my project, and this is not it. What is going on here? Somebody see what I missed? I'm sure I missed some step here. Project 2. There it is. I just saw the wrong one. Okay, so now I've got my tables created, and if I go here, I've got to-do items. So this is what I've done by setting up the model and then migrating it, or make migrations followed by migrate, has created an empty table here with all of the attributes that I set up. Now, it would be really nice if we could just directly add stuff here if we wanted to type it in. Unfortunately, it doesn't allow us to do it this way. It gets really mad if you do it this way. So we'll be doing it through the command prompt next week. I will show you a less painful way to do it through Django admin. But for now, we're doing it through the command prompt just so you can see it get set up. So I'm going to stop my server again. I didn't have it running, so I didn't have to stop it. What I want to do is I want to run my Python shell in my command prompt. So I'm just going to do Python. Just going to type Python. And I know I'm in my shell once I get the 3 greater than signs here. I don't do a lot of stuff in shell. There's not a lot of it in class, but it's what it is. If you've not used it before at this point, it's just a line-by-line Python program where you can just edit. You can write your code line by line, or execute it line by line. I find it kind of limiting usually for this case. I'm going to just build a very simple program here that's going to let me create a to-do item. To do that, I first need to import my to-do item from my models. So I'm going to type from to-do.models import to-do item. Oops. Not like that. Okay, I didn't have the right command put in. I was just trying to run a generic prompt. But this is the difference. So I needed to put Python manage.py shell instead of just Python. So now when I do the same commands, now I'm good. Sorry about that. I just skipped a step. So once I do that, now I can do my import correctly. And I can then put in the to-do item that I want to enter. I'm going to copy and paste this. You don't see me type. I'm going to create to-do item variable, and it's going to be of type to-do item, which is our class. So I'm basically making an object from my class, and then I'm giving it its attributes. Who added it is somebody named Joe, who assigned it Andy, who was on 26, and the to-do item is grocery shopping, and it's due on the 8th. So this is already overdue. We should have done this grocery shopping, but it's complete at 0. So that's how I add an item to my table. Before it actually gets committed, I have to do save. So I do to-do item _1.save, and that will commit changes. Now I do get some warnings here, and this is because I haven't taken the time to assign my time zone, which I'm just not going to. It's something you can do fairly easily in the settings file. But it should have worked. So if I go over to DB browser, fresh, I now have a new row in my table that wasn't there before. So I've created a to-do item in my database. Now this is, again, not great. You can do it this way. It will take a while. You could also surely create a program separately to download stuff into your database. Again, next week I'll show you how to use the app tool, which is pretty cool to do the browser, essentially. But for now, we've got a to-do item. Now I want to bring that to-do item to the web. So I've created my item. I'm ready to go there. I need to now go to my views.py file. So I'm back to editing in Notepad++. open the file. I don't have any views in here yet because I haven't had to set one up, but I'm going to add some stuff here now. So first, I need to import my to-do item because it needs to be aware of the model. And then I'm going to create a function that pulls the information from that. It's going to do a pretty simple thing. When somebody makes a request, it's going to just grab all of the objects in the to-do item table, assign it to a variable, and then it gets returned to the browser. And it uses index.html to render it, which we have not set and we'll be setting up here in just a moment. So that part's set up and done. Save that. And then I need to go into my urls.py because I want to make sure that if somebody hits a specific page on my site, that they get sent this code as a return. Right now, it's not set up, so I'm going to add it. First, I need to, you see on line 19, I've got hello world import. I'm sorry, from hello world import views. I actually need to make an adjustment to that. And that's because I'm going to be utilizing two different views files. If it attempted to import views with the same name twice in the same program, it's going to mess it up. Because Python won't know which one to use. So I'm going to use aliases for both of them. I'm going to take my hello world and import views as hello view, and I'm going to take my to-do import views as to-do views, so they have a different name within this file. And then I'm going to adjust my URL patterns to allow both directories or both paths. So admin's there like it was before. Now you can see I've inserted to-do, which means if somebody goes to 127.0.0.1 8000/to-do, it's going to go to my to-do view, to-do function, and I give it a name. So it's going to essentially run my to-do code over here in my my function here. Okay. And then hello world here, I adjusted it so it uses a hello view on the page. So I'm going to save that. And now, because it's trying to access that index.html file, I need to create that index.html file for it to find. So I'm going to just do this through my Windows browser. This time make it another way of doing it. I could have done it through my command prompt using make directory, but this time I'll just do it through Windows. I need to go into my to-do folder, which I'm already in, and I need to create a new folder called templates. Then in that templates folder, I'm going to create a new file called index.html. So I'm just going to do new text document. I'm not going to allow it to have a .txt at the end. I'm going to call it index.html. It's going to complain because I'm changing the directory extension, which is exactly what I want. So now I have an index.html that I need to put some code in. So I'm going to open it over here in Notepad++. And I went with that wrong, didn't I? I'm going to move this now because I put in the wrong one. What happens when you start in the wrong directory? So I've got my empty HTML file, index.html file, that will be utilized to render my page. And I'm going to just put a simple HTML. All it's doing it is just putting in information from my table. So for item in to-do list, because on my views pie, remember, just pulled all of them, pulled everything off the table. So here I'm going to say for each item in that to-do list, put it to the screen. So I'm going to say entered by item.whoadded, assigned to. So this is just text that'll just go on the page. And this is what it's going to pull from that to-do list. It's going to do it for each one of the items in that list. So if I have multiple to-do items, it will just render each one. And then I put a break here to put a space in between each section. So now I can save that. Again, those of you that have done any front-end development, this is not pretty, but it gets our stuff to the page. As long as I've saved everything and something else hasn't gone horribly wrong, my hello world should, oh, I gotta launch my Slack. So, one more. Server, make sure I don't have any errors here. Okay, now let's try that again. Okay, so my hello world page still works with my changes. Now if I put a /to-do in, I now have my database row is now being pulled from my database and displayed on the web. So not interactive at this point, but I'm able to take database information and bring it to my site. So now if I were to go over here to Python, what was it? I'm going to add another item in now. So you can see it updates it. You can do it without it taking far too long. My shell again. That same again, this time I'm going to edit the item to make it something a little bit different. What you can't do in command prompt is click around within your text. You have to move with the arrows. To create another to-do item. It's going to be added by Matt. Going to assign it to students. Added it today. 3. Homework. 2. 5. Completed. I don't know. Depends if you completed it or not. Now I do to-do underscore item. Do.save. Okay, because I still haven't set up that time zone stuff, it complains, but it's added it to the database. And now if I exit my server, over to my browser, refresh my page, now you can see I've got the second to-do item showing up. Okay, so that was just kind of me fumbling through it for you, the same process I went through in Blackboard. I was originally going to have another section this week, but I found that this was difficult enough, so I'm going to leave it at this week. Have you guys get this far with it at work and get your server up and running, and then next week we'll do a little bit more with it. Hopefully you'll be a little more comfortable with dealing with different files and stuff. I didn't want to take it too far in one